Beringer Ingelheim, did I pronounce that right at least, where he's done some work with wearables there. We have Doug Elwood, who's worked both with BMS and Pfizer, but more interestingly is also a practicing physician at NYU. And then lastly, we have Dr. Tom Sang, who worked at Merck, now is part of a startup doing some real interesting things, but prior to that authored significant portions of the Affordable Care Act, so has a lot of insight into what were the changes to health economics that were really being looked at. So I think it's going to be a really dynamic panel. We're really going to try and focus on a lot of the practical implication of implementing some of these things in clinical trials, some of the data coming back. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have any interest in that, please reach out to us. We'd love to hook more folks up with that. I think it's going to be a great panel. So speaking of, nice. All right. So speaking of great folks, Geoff Kremer comes to us from Novo Nordisk. Prior to that, he worked at Covance. Geoff's had a variety of different roles and has kind of been a jack of all trades with data visualization throughout his career. The most interesting role that he's had though is he was a model in a Gibson guitar catalog. So I love bringing that up. So fantastic. And you gotta ask him to see the picture during the break. Okay, do a great job.
Thanks a lot, Matt. No pressure. All right. So I hope everyone's ready. You're going to learn everything you want to know about data visualization within the next 30 minutes. So I say that with a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I'm the head of CMR informatics, basically. That means clinical, medical, regulatory informatics, part of the strategy and operational effectiveness group at Novo Nordisk. So yeah, my job is a mouthful. And it's basically what we do is we create tools and reports and various things to help people make decisions. And data visualization is a huge part of that. So I'm going to be talking a lot about various aspects of data visualization, some best practices in terms of performance of your dashboards, and a variety of different tools. But one thing I do want to talk about is any tool that I talk about, it's my own particular vision and not the vision of Novo Nordisk. So I had to put that disclaimer out there. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of tools out there. You have ClickView, Tableau, Spotfire, SAP dashboards. All of these are good tools. I would say use all of them. My last talk here, this is my second time doing this conference, but my last talk I did a quick demo of Tableau. This time I'm going to do a quick demo of SAP dashboards. A lot of stuff I'm going to talk about is pretty obvious in terms of best practices for data visualization, but hopefully you leave today with at least one or two key takeaways. This is the only slide that I used that I'm going to reuse from my last talk, and it's a bit of a test for everybody in the room. As soon as you see two giraffes, stand up. Matt, you don't see two giraffes.
I'm just monkeying around.
Wow. No, and stay standing if you do see it. All right. So here's the deal.
Why didn't you say zebra instead?
There is a giraffe right up here, and then there's a giraffe in the upper left corner in the curve. So the whole point of that is no matter what tool you buy, it doesn't really matter whether it's Tableau or ClickView. At the end of the day, you still have to use your brain. All right? The strongest supercomputers in the world, including IBM Watson, they can't tell you there's two giraffes in this picture. So you guys can all go home. Those of you who are standing up, give yourself a round of applause. Tell your family, tell your friends that, hey, I just cracked the code that the best supercomputer in the world couldn't crack. All right? So congratulations. So you still have to use your brain. So data visualization is fantastic for storytelling. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about how I started off in my career. The other day, actually about a month ago, I was doing some spring cleaning around the house, and I was in the attic, and I found this big bin full of papers. And I started going through it, and I found a piece of paper that really took me back. It was a report that I created over 20 years ago when I started off my career. And it really took me back because it was the first time I had just been promoted to my first management position. I got a new workspace, I got a brand new computer loaded with the latest and greatest technology. So, Windows 95. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna totally wow the executives here and just show off my totally rad analytical skills. And this was a graph that I had on that report. So, and it did wow a lot of people. They were like, wow, this is insights that we've never had before. You know, fantastic graph, fantastic insights that this report is giving us. But then as we started using this report, and this was refreshed on a monthly basis, you know, a lot of questions started coming up. Like, for example, you know, what's going on here? Is this June or is this July? And you know, what is the number for June? Is it 350? Is it 400? You know, it is a little bit confusing. So then later on, I discovered the existence of Tufte. Have anyone heard of Edward Tufte? All right, so this is where we're going to get into a lot of the common sense sort of stuff. He has a lot of good. He's viewed as a guru for data visualization, and he has a lot of principles that I'm going to cover right now. But all this stuff again is really complex. So what I'm going to do with this graph is I'm going to give it the Tufte treatment and talk about some of his principles along the way. Basically, his major principle is, above all else, show the data. Reduce as much ink on the page as you possibly can. And you'll save some money in the process in terms of ink, you know, running to Target to buy some more ink for your computer. But take any ink that's not related to the data, just get rid of it. And that's really a best practice. So I'm going to give this graph here the Tufte treatment. So all these minor grid lines in the back, we're going to get rid of it. Think about reducing the non-data ink altogether. So these big heavy grid lines around my 3D bars, we're going to get rid of that. These patterns that I have within my chart, I spent tens of minutes trying to find just the right pattern. I totally remember making this chart. And do I use the slashes? Do I use the dots? What do I use? Well now we're just going to get rid of them altogether. Get rid of the blue background. Another principle from Tufte is, if your data only has 2 dimensions, don't show 3 dimensions. So your data visualization has to tie out to what it is. So as much as I like the cool aspect of the 3D, it's really not warranted. So we're going to get rid of the pivot, get rid of the rotation. Again, getting rid of the non-data ink. I have my bold Comic Sans, which I was very proud of, with making it look all nice and cool. Well, we're going to get rid of that now. Also, colors matter. I won't really get into it, but you really want to keep your audience in mind. You don't want to have any loud colors that are hard on the eyes. This magenta, let's just get rid of that and make it a little blue. And also, our data series, we only have one data series. So there's no point in showing a legend. So let's get rid of the legend. Let's change the color, make it a little easier on the eyes. And again, above all else, show the data. So here we go. I'm going to just show the data. And also, one of the things that Tufte says is get rid of redundant data. So now that we're showing the data, there's really no need for the major grid lines anymore. And since we're not doing anything deceptive here, we're starting with 0 at our y-axis. Quite frankly, we don't even really need the y-axis anymore. So here's a complete, this is the Tufte treatment from my awesome 3D chart that I made way back in 1995. So anyway, these are the various principles that Tufte talks about in this book. So he has a book called Visual Display of Quantitative Information. Go ahead and take it out, take a look at it. It's a pretty decent read. But all these are the high-level bullets that he talks about. Is above all else, show the data, maximize the data ink ratio, and he has a big calculation on that, which I won't get into. Erase all the non-data ink, erase the redundant ink, and just revise and edit along the way. So again, a lot of this stuff is common sense, but had I known that, I would have saved myself a lot of aggravation 20 years ago. And this book came out in 1983, so there's no excuse for it. All right, next topic. I'm going to be jumping around all over the place. sometimes the data doesn't quite tie out to the story that the storyteller is trying to tell. So in those cases, you will come across some deceptive data visualization techniques. So this is not a how-to. This is to be aware and call people out when they do these data visualization deceptive techniques. Stephen P. Jobs, shame on you with your deceptive data visualization techniques. Can anyone call out? The green slice here is Apple. So his story, the data didn't quite tie out to the story that he was trying to tell. Anyone see anything wrong with this graph?
It's bigger than 21.2.
Very good. 19.5 is somehow bigger than 21.2. Yes. Good.
Perspective of it alters what you see. Obviously, the closer it is, the larger it's going to appear as a percentage of the total pie.
Correct. All right. So there's a lot of things going on at play here. One, he's shown it in 3D. He angled it just so Apple is right at the edge for the 3D, so it perceives that it's even bigger than it really is. Also, the perspective of it is off. Dead center of this chart, the dead center part of this chart should be somewhere around here, but they offset it. The angles are actually correct. There's nothing wrong with the angles, but they offset it in a way that just makes this bigger. They made it green to make it pop a little bit more. And also in standard pie charts, it usually goes in order. The first number here is the second number is here. So that 21.2 should really be here. So if you're not paying attention, you just think automatically, oh, okay, Apple's holding in second place. And also there's colors at play here. The last third of the chart, I mean, they're all kind of part of the same palette. So there's a lot of data deception going on here. So if we were to give this the Tufte treatment, it would look very similar to this. So here you could clearly see right off the bat. So when you tell your story, you don't want your audience to really struggle and try to, make the connections, and you want to clearly communicate what's going on instantly. So if you clearly communicate it, everyone would know right off the bat that Apple was in third at this particular point in time. But then kind of get into these other discussions. Did he even really slice it the right way? I mean, if you really wanted to slice it by operating system, Apple would have been much even smaller. So instead, he chopped it up by brand to get him into third place. So that's an example.
Yeah, so how does other, it seems like it should be broken down into small components and like further along.
Totally agree. So this chart just is lots of people in data visualization circles always call BS on this particular graph, and all the things that are wrong with it, and that isn't one of it. Is what is it? What is other anyway? And
But this is an excellent example of good marketing.
very good. Yeah. And I love Apple, and Steve Jobs is the king of marketing.
Cruising up will help you with ribbons.
Yeah, right. So these are some other pictures I just grabbed off the internet. Again, the data probably didn't fall in alignment with the story this person was trying to tell. But if you look at the interest rates for whatever this is, from 2008 to 2012, it was relatively flat. And I guess that wasn't quite the story that the person was trying to convey. So they zoomed on in, and if you're not paying attention, take a look at the y-axis. There's only a difference between 2008 and 2012 of like 1/100th of a percent, which is a big deal. But if you look at the graph, you're like, oh my God, the sky's falling, interest rates are raising. So anyway, just little things that people do to slant the story in a way that they want it to be slanted. Another picture I grabbed off the internet here. If you're not paying attention, just take a quick look. It looks like after 2005, gun deaths in Florida dropped. But in reality, they increased. They flipped the switch on the y-axis.
Wow.
So you gotta pay attention to what's going on. If you're not paying attention, you're like, oh yeah, after stand your ground law, everything went down. But no, actually the converse happened. But so little things you gotta be aware of. Again, this is not a how-to. This is just be aware. All right, here's another one. Fox News. Can anyone see any issue with this? Just shout it out if you see it. Job loss by quarter, June 2010. If we lost 15 million jobs in that quarter, that would have been a complete disaster. So this must have been cumulative of something. I don't know what exactly it is that they were actually talking about, but this line must be cumulative. But there's no way we lost 15 million jobs in June of 2010, and 13.5 million in March. So the labeling here is not tying out to the message that it's conveying. So be aware of that as well. All right. Here, if you look at 1977, 1978, so a difference of a year, the increase in the cost per barrel was about 61 cents. Increase between 78 and 79 is about 63 cents. So it's about the same. But look at the difference in the barrels between 77 and 78. Just a slight difference. Same difference between 78 and 79. The height is drastically higher. The width is drastically wider. So you're looking at a bigger area. So the picture is not tying out to the data. It's just, I guess the person here was trying to communicate that the sky was falling in 1979. So some of these pictures I just randomly grabbed off the internet. This one is actually from Tufte's book. Another thing is be aware of the time value of money. If you're looking over at if you're looking at money over a vast period of time, in this particular case, it's from 1967 to 1977. Take into account, inflation, deflation, the value of money. Put things in constant dollars. So this is basically the same data. It's just a different way of looking at it. So if you look at it without taking into account the time value of money, you would think that things are just constantly going bad. Where in real life it was actually pretty constant for about 7 years. So just things to be aware of. So Tufte also has some principles on graphical integrity, and a lot of this stuff we already covered in those various examples. So all of your numbers should be directly proportional to the numerical quantities measured. Basically that oil barrel, clear detailed labeling throughout. Show data variation, not design variation, and watch out for the lie factor. So a lot of this stuff is just covered in the book, and also, the number of dimensions should be depicted and not exceed the number of dimensions in your data. So, and don't quote the graphics out of context. All right, now I'm switching gears on performance of your dashboards. People, how many times have people run reports? Maybe it's a crystal report, maybe it's a dashboard. You open it up, you click the button, and you have to go get a cup of coffee or something, right? To get the data to refresh. Sometimes it takes a long time for these reports and dashboards to refresh. And so always be mindful of the performance of your dashboards. How many people like to get punched in the face? That's an example that I like to use. I know, besides Chris O'Donovan, anyone like to be punched in the face? No? So if you had your choice, do you want to get punched in the face once or 100 times? Probably once, right? So develop your dashboards in a way where you just pull in all the data that matters the first time. That way, whenever you change your different views, the dashboards will refresh instantly. And I'll show you a real life example of that in my demo in a few minutes. But performance matters. Just a couple of do and don'ts. Just pull the data that you need to convey your story. And query your large tables only once. This is that get punched in the face only one time instead of 100 times. If you do have very heavy calculations within your queries, think about just doing them on running them on a nightly basis. Have a daily job that runs on a nightly basis, and just hit that table that gets created on a nightly basis, rather than trying to recalculate everything on the fly. So when you recalculate everything on the fly, it just frustrates the end user. It's horrible. It's a horrible user experience. So there's a lot of different things to do in this space. Just just go ahead and Google optimize SQL queries or whatever query that you're writing, whatever tool you're using. You'll find a lot of do's and don'ts in there. Some other don'ts, some people create temp tables and then they write a lot of update queries. So just use case instead of update. Try not to reuse code hastily because sometimes it doesn't quite tie out to the story that you're trying to tell. Don't use the report app so much for calculations. Yes, Tableau, Click, Spotfire, SAP dashboards, you can do calculations on the fly, but you're much better off having the database itself do all the heavy lifting. So don't make the report do the heavy lifting. Make the database do the heavy lifting, and it'll speed up the performance of refreshing your dashboards. And don't limit yourself to just one visualization tool. They all have their pros and cons. One thing that SAP Dashboards does that the others don't, you'll see that in a couple minutes when I do the demo, and it'll be extremely obvious. And also don't stop learning. And always keep in mind the user experience, so performance really matters. All right, so now I'm just going to jump right on in and do a quick ad hoc demo of SAP Dashboards. All right. So I'm going to start off with a clean slate here, nothing in here. And what I'm going to do is grab some mock data that I have prepared. So there's no, oh, of course. There we go. So I'm going to take my mock data set here. I'm going to copy it and drop it right into my workspace here. So something cool about this is you have a little Excel spreadsheet in here. People love Excel. There you go. It's in there. I'm just going to label this data. So now I have something to work with. All right. So I want to think about what exactly it is do I want to show. So a lot of this stuff here is just drag and drop. And it's very simple to use. So in this particular case, I'm going to drag in a simple column chart. And in order to slice and dice my data by various perspectives, I need to pick a selector. So I'll pick, in this particular case, I'll pick a list box. And then I also want to dice the data by, say, department. So I'll pull in a combo box here for a drop down. And then I also want to pull in some labels. So I'll pull in a text label. All right? So pretty quick and easy to do. I'm going to call this dashboard demo. All right, and I'm going to make this, I won't spend too much time doing any Tufte type things here or keeping things clean and neat. I'm just going to show you a couple of cool tricks. All right, I'm going to make that bold. And just change the color. All right, so there's lots of ways you can format things. I'm no longer using my components. I have everything I need. Actually, I'll come back to that in a little bit. So now I just want to take a look at my data for a minute. So I'm going to jump on over and just look at my spreadsheet. Take away some of the noise. All right. I want to take a look at my trials. And what I want is a unique listing of trials. I'm going to get rid of the duplicates. I'm just building this on the fly. Obviously you wouldn't do this on your real dashboard here, but this is a good way to kind of prototype something. All right, so I now have my unique listing of trials. I want to get a unique listing of departments. All right. So basically what I'm going to do now is tie this information to the widgets that I just added on to the dashboard. So now I'll just go back to my workspace. So my list box here, I just click on this little handy dandy thing. And I highlight my range. So now I see my trials. We'll just call this trial listing. So So you don't need to have any specific, programming expertise. If you're half decent in Excel, you can do a lot of damage with this tool. Now my drop-down box, I'm going to go ahead and select my departments here. Done. All right. And you can do some different behaviors. I'm going to say, hey, as soon as I open this, I want to have the first item selected. Whatever I select, I want to drop the label information into this destination. I'm going to pick a spot in my dashboard to drop the data. And I'm going to also do that with my list box of trials. So I'm going to drop the label. So if I pick trial 1, it's going to drop the name trial 1 into this cell. All right. I'm going to do a little handy dandy concatenation stuff. Close this and that. This will be my lookup. So for example, if I pick portfolio, whoops. I hate not working with a mouse. So if I pick portfolio and all, it'll say portfolio all. This is going to be my lookup now for my dashboard. Next is my chart. So we'll just call this a resource forecast. And the subtitle will be whatever trial that I pick. Boom. All right. So now what we're going to do is show an overtime component. Oops. We're just going to do a simple VLOOKUP here. I'm going to look at whatever is selected. And put my $signs in there. And take a look at my raw data. And $signs. So I'm just doing this all on the fly. Apologies for, hopefully I'm not wasting your time. All right, we'll be done in 1 second. So now, what's going to happen here is I'm just creating a very simple VLOOKUP. So whatever I pick in my dashboard, it's going to drop the information right here. So now this is what I tie my graph to. I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Resource forecast. I'm going to do this by series. I'm going to add a series. That's my series. Done. And now I got to put my category labels, which will be the months. And you can do all kinds of things that you want in terms of picking colors and making it a half decent dashboard. All right. So now I'm just going to switch on over and only look at my canvas and play around with how I want it to be displayed on the page.
Geoff, this is the tool you started learning this morning, correct?
I did. It's very simple to use. You guys can pick this up really quick. But really, you don't need a whole lot of training to mess around with and create some dashboards here. There's also some cool stuff to do. So basically, when you go into preview mode, that's all that it took. When you go into preview mode and you pick on your different views, this is what I mean about getting punched in the face, 1 time instead of 100 times. You're not getting punched in the face at all here. You pick your dash, you pick your trial that you want to see. You pick your slice. You see want to see it by ClinOps or by site management. It's just quick and easy. Everything just refreshes instantly. And take it a step further, you can do some really cool things with this. So let's show here. Let's show my workspace. I'm going to go ahead and do something a little bit goofy. All right, other. You can pull in pictures. There we go. I'm going to pull in an image component. All right, I'm going to place it over here, make it a little smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a picture of myself. And I'm going to say, I only want to see this. I'm going to make myself the VP here. I'm only going to want to see this when all departments are shown. That's my status, and I'm only going to want to see it when all is shown. Now I'm going to just copy this, paste it. Now I'm going to change another picture. This time I'll pick Matt. I'll say whenever he gets picked, whenever ClinOps gets picked, that's him. It just takes a minute, and it's really not that difficult. I'll pick Chris. Chris is going to be the head of project management.
That's right.
All right. That work? All right. Now, whenever, let's see here. Let's pick Eric. Good-looking guy. All right. And he will be in charge of site management. All right. So now I have all these pictures here. And what I'll do is I will make them all the same size. Let's see here. And I'll put them all in alignment. Top. Boom. Now, just like that, you have a pretty cool dashboard. It didn't take a whole lot of time, but now, whenever I pick ClinOps, I see Matt. I pick project management, there's Chris O'Donovan. Site management, there's Eric. So it's a cool little personalization that you can do to your dashboards. Another cool thing that this tool does, and that Tableau and QlikView and all these other data visualization BI tools don't do, is this. I'm going to export this dashboard into a PowerPoint slide, which is huge. How many times have you guys sat through presentations where you see the same exact graph, literally 50 times, just with a different slice? And you have people just kind of jumping from slide to slide to get to their story. Now if you do this, see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to jump it all on over in here into my presentation and just paste it in. Now I'm going to go back into preview mode.
Looks good.
Huh?
Looks good.
It does, doesn't it? So now here we are. We are in PowerPoint. So you can do whatever you want with this. You can embed it in a PowerPoint slide. You can embed it in a SharePoint page. There's lots of stuff that you can do with this. And that's one of the challenges with Tableau and QlikView is the delivery mechanism. You can create a really cool dashboard, but if you don't have server, nobody's going to see it. I mean, or you have to call somebody up and say, hey, I got this cool dashboard. Download the free trial version or Tableau Reader, then you can look at it. So this way you can just create a quick dashboard, plug it into your presentation, and distribute it any way you want. Something that I didn't even go into, I just kind of did the manual version of creating a dashboard, but you can tie this directly to a dashboard, to databases. And you don't need the enterprise-wide version of SAP dashboards. You don't need the SAP universe. All you need is someone with half-decent skills to write a web service, and then you can be good to go in an afternoon. It's very quick and easy, and the cost of this is only like $500. So even if you don't have the money or the means to invest in any of these BI tools, this is low-hanging fruit, quick and easy win. So that's my demo of SAP dashboards. Hopefully that was somewhat useful or informative to somebody in this room. And here's just a summary of data of the stuff that I talked about. Just keep it simple. Utilize some of Tufte's principles. Don't use 3D charts. Don't use pie charts. Colors matter. Less is more. And just whatever you do, make it intuitive and easy to use. You know, when was the last time anyone was trained to do a search on Google, right? Nobody was trained to do a search on Google. So you should make your dashboards the same way. You should make it very easy and intuitive. Again, talk about performance. Do the best you can to optimize. Following those do's and don'ts that I showed earlier. Real story. We had a query that took about 2 minutes to run. We follow those principles. That same query now takes 2 seconds to run. So it makes a difference, and it really helps with the user experience. And in the end, just always keep learning. Just keep learning. Always be collaborating too. Share your visualizations with other people. Get their feedback, and make modifications along the way. Beware of data deception tactics. Train yourself. Train your people. You know, train yourself in every tool that you can, and find a story to tell. And speaking of finding a story to tell, I'm going to show you a very quick movie clip. Has anyone heard of Project Greenlight? We'll see if we can connect the dots watching this quick little video clip.
We had a different process for picking the directors.
The 10 director finalists got this kind of almost unintelligible 2.5-page script. It was a really interesting challenge, though, to get a director to tell a story from something that made no apparent sense.
Seriously, is that what I think it is?
I don't know.
Is that what I think it is?
I don't know. What do you think it is?
Is that what I think it is?
I don't know. What do you think it is?
So then we looked at all the top 10 scenes and had to narrow it down to the 3 that we were going to take to Sundance.
Is that what I think it is? I don't know. What do you think it is?
Is that what I think it is?
I don't know.
It's so sad.
All right. So basically, the whole point of showing that, what was my point? Everyone working with the same data set. And everyone came up with a completely different story. So as you move forward with your data visualization learning, and flex your analytical muscle as you're learning these new tools, and take a data set, mess around with it, play around with it, see how many stories that you can come up with. And just maybe you may find a story that is yet to be told within your own organization. So, good luck.
Any questions for Geoff?
You didn't have low at all?
Yes?
What do you think it is?
I don't know. What do you think it is?
So my question, do you create those graphs yourself in the department for your users, or you actually allow them to go to the tool?
Yeah, we're a centralized group, and we provide support for the business. So they come to us with various problems, and we take a look and see if we can find the drafts in the data.
Okay, and another question, the way you show how you can put it in the presentation, is there any way like to create 2 graphs and make the connections between 2 of them?
Yes. 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 So you can tie various graphs together. There's so much that you can do with this. I just merely scratched the surface of some of the stuff that you can do with that tool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just have a comment. It's a great visualization, and we can really see how much the data can be done, with unlimited interpretation. Now the real question is, what do we believe? When people have this endless skills and look at the data in different ways, slice down differently. And so where are the governance of the ethics to translate the raw data into some meaningful and real message? I think that's where, because the society right now, we are really enforcing everything, every individual is whichever the way to communicate a message. And so those messages many times are, polarized, and but really pulling different audience depending on where are some of the motives. So how do the society, with this technology, enable us to actually see a true picture? Where are the society governance? How as a professional, when we're getting into
changes it, who knows about it, again, it comes back to people needing to understand it. They can see it and change it and call it out. How else can that be? Then the other question is whether from some sort of other model, like ledgering models, whether there's some sort of other way to protect the data. So there's two sides of it, right? We can see the data now. Because a lot of times, this stuff would be given to us as a package built, and we never saw the data. Like you said, you can look at that and say, look at those ratios are wrong. So my hope is democratization of that is that more people can see it and can touch the data. I hope.
A lot of things to further develop. I think this is a field, it's great. So
Right.
that's also embedding a lot of challenge.
I just want to say, you know, at our organization, with the increasing ubiquitous access of some of these data visualization tools, we've actually gone to silo mentality. I work in clinical development, and there's this concern that you know, people shouldn't have access to all this stuff, just a small set of SMEs, et cetera. Have you guys dealt with that in your organizations? How do you combat that?
Yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. I mean, you do have people who, you know, they see these dashboards and they're like, oh great, you know, I'm gonna go build it myself. They go ahead, they buy Tableau, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing with it. And they just pull in data and start visualizing it, and it doesn't quite it doesn't quite fall in alignment with a lot of other stories that are being told in the organization. So I mean, maybe they're just, you know, doing it the wrong way, and it's a challenge. So
one of the ways we're fighting it is with authors. So that right now, if you look at that report and the way that's written, you don't know who did that. So in subject matter areas, clinical or data that's regulated, you need to somehow or another tie either the owner of the data or regulator of the data to, like, this is the person who can arbitrate or sort of bless it. There's other people who can't change it. So we have this notion of you can be an editor, and there's also this notion of a viewer and manipulator. You can't republish it because you're not, you know, you can actually twist it up and it'll be all wrong. If someone derives data from that data, you're doomed, right? So that's the only way around it.
And what we do with our department is we brand all the dashboards that we create. And so the end users, you know, they know who created it, and if they try to view the stuff that we create as the single source of truth. And if somebody is out there creating something different, then
It's derived.
then yeah, exactly, then it's derived. And then we have to have the discussion. Hey, why does your dashboard not tie out to this one? This becomes a headache sometimes.
And I think that it's really indicative of the whole pendulum, right? You know, and the consequence of, you know, the rapid, you know, adoption of these BI tools, right? You know, the drag and drop stuff, the desktop stuff, the ability to do custom mashups by myself, right? To access data sources or hand pass files and put things together, right? When you look at the old models where you had big federated data warehouses, right, where you could have that established control versus this newer evolution to decentralized, you know, models, right? That's an absolute consequence of that pendulum swing, right? So again, it brings up those governance questions and what becomes that, as Geoff put, we use the same term, single source of truth, right? Who's the data owner? Is this a CFR R11 compliant system, right? Do we have to, you know, adhere to any sort of convention? We could get my hand in hot water, right, by not understanding where the source came from and somebody making an inference onto something that's 3 tiers down the lane, right? Huge consequences to not having the effective communication between the organizations and make sure that the free flow of information isn't just free flow of information for the sake of putting it out there, but truly they're driven by need. And that's why I always say, you know, there's always going to be a place for novel analytics. There's always going to be a place for exploratory stuff that ultimately allow you to, you know, as some put it, you know, capture the diamonds in the data mine, right? You know, being able to do those analytics are important, but you know, when you start with the information dissemination in an unfederated model, right, you know, with zero governance surrounding it, it can become a scary place. An organization, I think, has to, based upon its structure and how it wants to disseminate that, just even culturally speaking, some companies, they'll share everything. You know what? You figure out something that's cool, share it, right? Others are like, thou shalt only see what thou art entitled to see, and that's it, right? So, you know, these are not one size fits all, you know, sort of solutions. And, you know, what you'll well, let me put together this clinical statistical package that ultimately can be used and adopted by the entire industry, right? So the question becomes, like, what are we trying to do, right? What does the culture support? What does the governance structure allow? And these are huge decisions from an organizational design perspective that we as BI professionals really need to iron out to truly get whatever you can possibly leverage out of the information repositories in Truly.
Other questions for Geoff?
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Before we conclude here, one of the things that we really like about having workshops that are this size is that it's pretty open, and I think a lot of the interaction today has been really collaborative. It's the benefit of having a small group like this. So before we close, are there any questions that any of you came to the workshop today that you really want to check the pulse with the rest of the group, or you're having a tough time struggling with, just to open it to that?
I just have a quick question. Does anyone use Rome BI that SAP just bought?
Rome BI that SAP just bought? Not looking good. I'll keep my eye open.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Based on Matt's presentation. Matt, you mentioned something called card technology at some point on one of your slides.
Yep.
What is that?
It's basically a term for the ability to think of like a card,
Sticky
index
notes.
cards, right? And you can just sort of grab an existing report that is on a card and move it over onto the canvas. So it's just really you drag and drop reports, and they're displayed like cards. A lot of tools are adopting it these days, so they provide a lot of flexibility for our users to create something that they want. I think, Matt, you're very familiar with that. Anything else to add to that? Or?
No, I think it's just another way of saying it's an object, with standard parameters that you can move around.
Okay.
Other questions? I have to say, Geoff, you were doing stuff up there, and I was like, this guy's like the Jeff Ross of data visualization, Happy little VLOOKUP right over here. That was great. All right, well, thanks again, everybody, for coming, and we're going to have the room for a little while if you want to network, but we really appreciate you coming all out, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.